the successful producers and the successful agency owners, they're owning their craft. They're really taking into account, like, I got to sharpen my skill set sometimes in my off hours so that in my on hours, I'm ready to go. Oh, yeah. Welcome, everybody, to the How to Sell Insurance podcast. We are here with two very handsome and knowledgeable gentlemen. Really excited for today's topic. We've got a good one, especially if you are someone who is newer in the insurance business, although maybe you're not newer in the insurance business, but you need to get back to the basics that may have helped you be successful in the beginning, because sometimes you can drift off a little bit into left field there over a period of time. So what we really wanted to talk about today is how to have success in your first 90 days, how to get started quickly, how to hit the ground running. And we've got so many different categories of this that we're really going to help break down for you in an effective way so that you can really kind of like look at your journey and make sure that you are doing the right things. And so one of the first things that I wanted to talk about before I hand it over to these two guys is when people come into our industry, the insurance industry, especially when you're doing something that's in a self-employed, you're an independent agent working for yourself and having your own schedule. Most people were coming into this with more of an employee mindset. They weren't used to that business owner, self-employed type strategy. And that can create some challenges early on. When somebody, for example, comes in and looks at something like investing money in leads, they may have thought about that as more of like an expense that they have to pay, instead of a business owner would look at that as an investment with a calculated return that they want to go ahead and invest as much as they possibly can because they know that it's going to have a 4, 6, 8, 10 times return on their investment. When we look at things for like our lead system, for example, we look at that like an ATM. It's an ATM that prints money as long as we're consistent with it and we're working them and we're reaching out and asking for help. So the first thing I think is just so important if you are getting started here, brand new as a self-employed insurance agent, is understanding that you're going to have to take on some characteristics of a business owner or an entrepreneur that you may or may not have done before. I think one of the biggest things is going to be your schedule, especially if you got a family, you're working from home. You need to make sure that everyone in your household is aware and on board with what you're doing, what you're fighting for, the reason that you're, going to be doing this thing that may be different from what you've done in the past. And so they have to really understand that when you're working, whether that's in your home office or whether you set up a computer in the living room, whatever you do, they have to really treat it as if you're gone at an actual office during the day. And so I think that's one of the first things that I know that when I'm mentoring new agents, they struggle with is just that idea of how do I build a schedule where, number one, I can stay disciplined and committed to the activities I need to do, but how do I also make sure that my family is on board with what I'm doing? Another key element, I think, of helping people really kind of transition from that employee to that business owner mindset is understanding that when you are here, you don't get paid just to show up. You get paid to show up with a developed skill set. So you need to take the time to invest in your skill set when you're not in income producing hours. For example, when I first started, I was listening to a ton of audios, a ton of podcasts of people going over how to get better at the phone script, the presentation script, how to overcome particular objections. I listened to those. And so that when I was in my income producing hours, making these dials, talking to people, I was prepared and I was working on my skill set. So many people, I think, just get up and running and they think, oh, I'm going to get on the job training and that'll help me just instantly be successful here like everyone else. But what people don't understand is the successful producers and the successful agency owners, they're owning their craft. They're really taking into account, like, I got to sharpen my skill set sometimes in my off hours so that in my on hours, I'm ready to go. So I wanted to start there, kind of set the table, Ryan, because I just think that the business owner thing is something people really do struggle with.
Well, man, listen, you just said what most people come in here and do, and I think anybody who's been in this business long enough knows most people that come into this business. The reason why we have such a high turnover is that they go get their license and then they just hope that somebody's going to come knock on their door and go, "Hey, I heard you got your insurance license. Can you sell me a policy?" Right? And that's their strategy to being successful. And that's not how it works in any business, right? And so the income producing activities is huge. I think that what you said about working and learning is like, look, when I was in college, I was studying, and then I also needed to work a job to pay my bills, right? To pay for tuition, to pay for housing, to pay for food, all those things. And so it's like I had study time and I had work time. It's the same thing when you start this business, especially if you're not experienced in it. It's like I have study time and I have work time, right? And so I'm studying in my off hours and I'm working. I think one of the things though that I really wanted just to start with for a minute and then certainly kick it over to Ashton is I think having a schedule is probably the most important thing. You're right, 100%. So like so many people fail because they don't have a schedule, they can't protect their schedule. I know for me, it was very much in that way. I had to get my family bought in to that, like, hey, even though I'm here, I'm not really here. My wife would be like, hey, can you make dinner? Or, hey, could you go to the store and get this? Or hey, this broke or whatever. It's like, hey, I want you to imagine that I called you while you were at your office at 1 p.m. And I was like, hey, could you go to the store and bring back bread? It's like you couldn't do that either. So I need the same amount of time to work and to make money because my income depends on it. My livelihood, our family depends on it. But I think that also understanding the market that you're working is super important because you might create a schedule around your family or whatever. And then the leads that you're working need to be worked at a different schedule. If you're working mortgage protection, you need to be working evenings and weekends, right? Every in-home sales industry, solar, pest control, alarms, anytime that you're selling to somebody and they're at their house, evenings and weekends are required, right? It's not optional. Now, could you get by maybe, selling a little bit less if you just sold during the day? Are you going to talk to people who are retired and sell them policies? Sure. Are you going to talk to people who work from home and sell them policies? Absolutely. But if you only have the daytime hours, you probably want to work a different market. You probably want to work the senior market and do something like final expense or do Medicare or Medicare supplement or something like that. If you can't work the weekends, maybe you want to do more instant live transfer life insurance, right? Or something like that for people that are ready to buy now. So making sure that the leads that you're getting, where you're finding clients, also matches with the time that you're available, or vice versa, that your time you're available matches with, the times that you can meet with clients. This has become extremely easy recently because we went all virtual. And after 2020, most people are selling virtually to some extent. And if you're not, you should be, but this opens up the time zones. I'm in California. I only work the Eastern time zone, right? So in the Pacific time zone, I think we have it the best because at 1 p.m. my time, people on the East Coast are getting off work, right? It's 4 p.m., 5 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m., 2 p.m. my time. So I get to work from 1 p.m. to like 5 or 6 p.m. as people are getting off in the prime time, Monday through Friday. People are getting off work around that time in the East Coast. And then I'm done by 6, right? My time. I'm go get my kids and have dinner and enjoy my family. If I need to work a little bit more and I've got goals to hit, I can start working the Pacific time zone at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, and I can go until 8 or 9 p.m. We have plenty of people on the East Coast that do that and they work until midnight Eastern because at 8 p.m. Eastern, it's 5 p.m. Pacific. But we have the freedom and the flexibility to make ourselves available for different time zones and just I think it's important to know that your schedule works for the demographic that you're working with. So, Ashton, what do you think, man?
It's really just figuring out what you want. Do you want to go out there and go have a $2,000 month? Do you want to go have a 10, 20, $30,000 month? It's like, what is that goal that you're trying to hit? And are you willing to do what it takes? That's the best way to put it. And one of the best analogies I've ever heard is if you think about building a house, you're like, man, I really want a, 3-story house. I want a basement. And I want it to be, 4,000 square feet. Like, I want a 4,000 square foot house with a basement, 3 stories, this massive house. And then you start building the house. You're like, I didn't realize, it was going to be, this much in supplies. I didn't realize it was going to take, like 3 years to build this. I didn't realize it was going to be this intense for this long. I'd have to put in that many hours over this much time. I didn't really realize all those, instead of a 4,000 square foot house, what if we built like a 1,500 or maybe like a 2,000 square foot house? All right, well, you do it in half the time. It would take half the money, half the resources. It wouldn't take as long. It won't take as many people to help. And that's the best thing. So like, if you start doing it like, hey, I want a $10,000 a month income. All right, well, if you want a $10,000 a month income, this is what you need to do. It's going to take 40, 60 hours a week. It's going to take spending 500, 1,000, 1,500 a week on leads. It's going to take you investing 3, 4 hours after work into training yourself, developing, getting better. And you might do that for a week or two. Like, I thought I wanted a $10,000 income month right off the bat. But hey, I don't think I'm willing to build that house anymore. What if we went for like a $3,000 month? That's kind of what I'm doing at my job now. All right, what would those hours look like? How much would I have to spend then? What would I have to do then? And so that's the biggest piece of wherever you're at, whatever company you're with, sit down with that mentor and go, hey, if this is what I want, what needs to be accomplished to achieve it? And then
Yeah,
you have one
architect the
of two
plans.
options.
For sure,
Yeah.
man. Architect those plans. Dude, I love that, Ashton. I think one of the things that I find that happens a lot, you guys might agree with this, is like somebody comes in and they want to make $10,000 a month in their head, right?
Yeah.
They know the plan. And then it's like they even probably have the money to buy the material. And sometimes they even get the material and then they're just like, oh man, now I got to build this house. And then they don't build the house, right? They've got everything. They've got architects, they've got engineers, they've got workers around them ready to work. They've got supplies. They're literally ready to make $10,000, in their first month, and then they just don't work. And it reminds me of something that I know we've talked about before, which is that this is not a difficult business. Most of us
Yeah.
are dealing with people who have said, I want to buy insurance. We're not going out and cold knocking and cold calling people. So it's not a difficult business. It's just super easy to not do. And it's really easy
Yeah.
to convince yourself that you're working when you're really not working. And so it's like, what is required, no matter how many materials you have, or if you're working warm market or cold market, or you're going to buy leads, or you're, generating your own leads, whatever, you still need to dedicate the majority of your time to actually talking to people who want to buy insurance
Yeah.
and not thinking about talking to people, right?
You reminded me of two really important points that I wanted to make sure we didn't go over. This is something you were talking about on another call earlier today. You talked about the prize and the price. Prize and the price. So prize and price means something for our clients. We got to make sure that the prize, which is the protection and the benefit and what it'll leave, is worth the price that they're going to have to pay monthly. For us as agents, we have to make sure that the income that we can make here, the lifestyle that we can have here, is worth the effort that we have to put in. That prize of being able to go on world-class vacations, being able to make a great income, being able to make a really positive impact, having an awesome lifestyle is worth having people that no-show you to your appointment. It's worth calling somebody, writing a policy, and then 6 months later they say, "Yeah, we don't want any more," and you have a chargeback. It's got to be worth you. Like, your reason for being here has to be big. It has to be bigger than all those things that you have to put up with. So the prize and the price, that's something that you have to make sure you're on board with. And then the other thing is, there was an audio that our corporate office put out like 6 years ago, and it was really like kind of raw and unfiltered, and it was talking about personal pitfalls, especially for newer agents. And one of the personal pitfalls they talked about is counting things that don't count. And you were kind of alluding to this a minute ago, Ryan, is that so many newer agents come in and they don't have a clear cut understanding of the metrics that are required to be successful here. And they count things that may not count. One example of that is, if I got somebody on the phone and I really went through like a full booking script, and they knew that I was going to call them tomorrow at 3 p.m. and to make sure their spouse was there, and they knew, what we were going to talk about, that would be a solid appointment. But if I got someone on the phone and they're like, "Hey man, I can't talk to you. I'm really busy. Call me tomorrow, maybe around 3. Goodbye." And then they hang up on me. If I was like, "Hey, I got an appointment," I know that I used to do that in the beginning. We kind of sell ourselves on,
Yeah, me too.
how we maybe got some work, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Ashton never did
Yeah,
that.
Ashton would never. He knows exactly what counts and what doesn't. But agents count things that don't count. And then tomorrow at 3 p.m., you get all excited. You spent the whole day, the whole night just getting prepared. You got all your quotes ready, and you call them, and then they don't answer. And you call them, and they don't answer. And you call them, you don't answer. Then you're like, what happened there? And so I think that's just such an important personal pitfall, is making sure that you're really being intentional and honest with yourself about what your business is doing. And if you have 50 dials and you spoke to 10 people and you really booked 2 appointments, but you told yourself that you booked 5 appointments because you have like a few callbacks, that's something that you really have to be open and honest with yourself about, because even though it makes you feel good on the front end, you're going to be really discouraged on the back end when those people don't show up and it doesn't come to fruition. So that kind of leads me into the next thing I want to talk about was just being consistent with lead orders. So when you are coming into this business, if you're in a model where you've got leads that you can work, or if you're in a model where you have to maybe rely on more of the old school cold calling, door knocking, whatever model that you're in, make sure that you own your numbers and then you know what you got to do. So when so many agents come into our business, because we do have a very robust lead system with a lot of different lead categories, it can get a little overwhelming, it can get a little confusing, but a lot of times agents come in and they don't have the proper budget to really invest in a lead program. And I think so many agents don't understand that $300 or $400 a week as a lead investment is freaking nothing relative to actual marketing dollars that you would have to spend to create your own leads. Or if you're just a general business owner that's looking to at client acquisition costs, the fact that we can spend $300 or $400 and we can turn that into $3,000 or $4,000 of commissions within a matter of 3 to 4 days is astounding. And I think so many people don't understand like how incredible that really is. So many companies, when they're in sales, they're having to make this massive investment into marketing and leads, and then they have to do the sales, and then there's all these little things that could go wrong through the sales process, and then they only get paid like 90 days later. We're in a
Dude, they
position
gotta
where
pay for
not
they gotta
that
pay
much.
for
Yeah.
offices. They gotta pay for like the products that they're selling and like buy materials from other countries. Like the overhead in this business is so tiny, so small for like $300, $500 for leads. It's like it's insane that
Yeah.
that people they can't wrap their head around like what the ROI is on these things. Anyway, sorry, man.
Yeah, so I just wanted to just kind of bring the point home is making sure that if you are going to make an investment into leads, make it consistent. I don't know of anyone that I've seen be a consistent, profitable long-term agent that didn't have a lead order every single week that was getting fulfilled. They made sure that they committed to it. They didn't say, "Hey, one week I'm going to get 10 leads, and next week I'm going to get 4 leads, and next week I'm going to work with the leads from the last 2 weeks." Like that is not a winning formula. You have to have a consistent pipeline. And if you're someone who's coming in and maybe you're advised to spend 3 or 400 bucks on leads and you only got $100, you got two ways you can make it up. You buy older inventory and you grind and you put in that work and you make the effort and you make it work, or you do have to supplement it with some more market stuff.
Yeah, I'm teeing Ashton up for this, so and Ashton knows exactly what he's going to be talking about on this because he's probably the best person to talk about this right now for what's happening. But it was sort of the example is always made to me, and I love analogies, right, and things that make sense that are reasonable. And so the example was made to me when I first started. You can't run a restaurant while buying food from the food bank, right? You can probably get some decent food from the food bank. If you go there, there's probably some stuff that you could use to make some meals, but you can't run a successful restaurant getting all your food from the food bank. At some point in time,
Yeah.
you got to go get brand new food to cook for people, right? And so it's like, hey, can I start off working aged leads? Can I start off working bonus leads? Can
Yeah.
I refry the old leads that I've had that I haven't gotten a result on? Absolutely. You definitely can, and you can make sales there. But to really blow your business up and to really hit that profitability level that you want to hit, you've got to be getting new people that want to buy insurance every single week,
Yeah.
over and over and over again. And so, when we talk about new agents getting started, Ashton has a brand new agent on his team. Shout out Dylan Crane, who's come in and I think probably exemplified all of the things that we're talking about: having a plan, having big goals, having commitment, blocking time off, being relentless, spending time learning on one side and working on the other side, buying leads consistently. And the guy has written over $100,000 in his first 2 months, right out of the gate, cold. Never done insurance
Yeah.
before. Talk to us about what it was like getting Dylan started and like, what he did differently than what some other agents do that you've seen, and what a new
Yeah.
agent could take away from his experience that would help them.
Yeah. And the biggest thing is activity. Like we keep talking about in this episode here, it's activity, activity, activity. And for Dylan over these last 8 weeks, we just ended week 8. We're at 123 grand in 8 weeks. There's a 82% issue rate so far. So it's not like things are getting written and they're not actually going through. It's these things are actually going through. Clients are getting approved. Clients are making payments. That's the other big key piece to put out here as well. And the biggest thing there is, it was just activity. In the beginning, he worked the oldest leads in the system. Now he had plenty of money to go get new leads. He had plenty saved up, could go do it if he wanted to. But in the beginning, I was like, listen, you're not going to know when someone says not interested, already have it. Someone talked to me. You're the fourth person to call me, or I already looked online. I didn't like the prices, whatever the objection is. You're not going to know how to overcome that. And do you want to learn that lesson on something that costs 30, 40, 50, 60 bucks? Or learn that on something that costs $1, $2, $3, $4? I was like, well, how do you want to learn? You want to learn that, paying $1 per lead, or you want to learn that paying, $60 per lead? Well, I want to learn that paying $1 per lead. Okay, great. So that first week and a half, we got nothing but the oldest leads in the system. Went and got, 100, 150 leads, and we just called through them like crazy. And by the end of every single week, we looked at the activity report, and every lead that didn't answer was called at least 20 times. So if they didn't pick up the phone, they had a minimum of 20 phone calls made by the end of the week, within that week, no matter how new or how old the lead was. They were called a minimum of 20 times. And that's why we had such a high contact ratio on what we were doing. And we knew, we ran the number, we had it so granular. We knew every 7 phone calls Dylan made, someone picked up the phone. Like that's how granular we got the numbers. It's like, how much money do you want to make today? How much money do you want to make this week? All right. Well, if you make this many phone calls, this many people will pick up. And based off of your rates, we know even on the oldest leads in the system, you're booking 1 and 2. So we know if you want 10 appointments, you got to go talk to 20 people. All right, talk to 20 people. We'll have 10 appointments. Every 10 phone calls, someone picks up the phone. All right, we need 100 phone calls today, and you'll have, 20 appointments, or you'll have 10 appointments. And we knew at that point, he had a horrible show rate, and then we worked on it, and we went through it. But we knew it that granular.
Well, hey, listen, I think it's important though, and I want to jump in and I want you to finish this thought. He asked for help.
Yeah.
Right? Like it wasn't just like, oh, we worked on it. No, he reached out to me. He reached out to Nate. He reached out to a bunch of other people like, hey, how do I get my show rate up? I want to get better. I want to get good at this. And so there was a commitment to working on himself alongside with doing the work. Exactly what Grant was talking about. He's doing all the dials and he's studying to get better on the off time. So it's like all of the elements put together created this success. And I think that, man, if everybody would just put all these elements together, we would have more $100,000 producers in their first 60 days.
And that's the key. It's right there. It's like you said, having that correction. His first 2 weeks, he had a 20% show rate. And then we worked on the show rate. He booked 40 appointments. Only 8 people showed up. Then the next week, we had a 58% show rate. 58% show rate. We increased it by 38% in a week by working and role playing through the tie down on the script. Then by the third week, he was up to a 68% show rate. So we're able to go increase the show rate by 48% in 2 weeks because we worked on it. And ironically, those next 2 weeks, he booked 40 appointments, the same amount of appointments. But now, instead of only, 8 people showing up, now we had 27 people showing up. So if we had 27 people showing up versus 8, even if he sucked at making sales, it didn't matter. He had 27
if
people.
27 people showed up to your appointments, people are going to buy insurance for sure. Regardless. Yeah.
You had 19 more opportunities than he had the other 2 weeks. So even if you had the same close ratio, which he did, he made way more sales. And so that's what we started doing. And then once you start making those sales, you start learning how to handle those objections. Then we move into newer things. Now, he moved into newer things a little too quick because he didn't understand all the objections yet. But once we get to a certain point where we know here's how we're handling objections, especially the common one, we've been in the industry a while. Any upline, any mentor, any coach is going to be in the industry for a while, and they're going to know the common ones on every lead type you're working. And on a brand new lead, we know what some of those are. Hey, this is the first thing I filled out. I haven't talked to anyone else yet. You're the first one, so I'm not doing anything yet, okay? Like, I'm just looking today. Well, he didn't know how to handle that and still got a new leads. And he's like, man, I'm ticked. I didn't make a sale. They told me I never came into that before. I didn't know what to say. It threw me off. I was like, yeah. That's why we want to, work on some of those. But once we got through that, now we're on new leads, and now all the time frames are collapsed.
Before we jump into the next comment, though, I really want to hear from you, like, because I think a lot of new agents, they hear, oh man, like I'm making
Yeah.
dials too, and I'm getting leads too, but my appointments aren't showing up. What do you think the biggest change was for him and how he was approaching the tie down that
Yeah.
gave him more of like a 70% show ratio rather than a 20% show ratio?
Some will argue it's what you say. I don't think that's as important as how you're sounding. You know, one of the things when we're role playing the script, and even when we're role playing with Nate Offer one time, and the first thing Nate says, like, man, you just sound extremely salesy.
Mm.
Like, you sound like a salesperson. This sounds like a sales pitch. And it's this whole time you just sound like you're trying to sell me, sell me, sell me, sell me. It's like you can't just sound like a normal human being. Sound like you're having a normal conversation. So that was piece one, just sounding normal.
Yeah.
So many people have this weird tone when they talk. And if you don't believe, like, record a normal conversation. Go sit down with your spouse, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, or whatever friend, a group of friends. Record you just talking normally in a conversation about what cup of coffee do you want today? I don't know, whatever it is. You're in line ordering Star Wars. Oh, I don't know what I want today. Oh, hey, can I get this? And then go play that back, hear how you sound, and then play back one of your recorded calls. Because when you play it back, you'll hear it. Like, oh yeah, I really did change how I was talking. My voice sounds way different. Yeah,
Way
it
different.
does. And so that was number one key piece was really that. And then what you're saying. So he was just going through and getting that confirmation for the appointment 5, 6, 7 times. Hey, we're meeting this day, this time. It's this day, this time. You're absolutely sure. You're positive. Nothing's coming up. All right. And you get it on your calendar. You put it down on your calendar. All right. Here's my name. Here's the phone. Here's my phone number I'm calling you from. All right. It's this day, this time, whether it's the calendar on the wall, the phone, whatever it is. So really locking it down. And then the other thing is making sure that they're going to show. You just tell them, hey, listen, my family's livelihood depends on this. So, if you can't show or even relate, it can throw off my entire schedule. And now that's another family I wasn't able to help. So are you absolutely sure that Tuesday at 3:00, you're absolutely sure you and Susie are both going to be able to be there? Is that right?
The takeaway. Yeah, I like
And if
that.
they don't, like, I'm pretty positive, well, we move it to a different time that we absolutely know. And so that's the other big key to going, here's all these things we're locking the appointment down with to make
sure.
sure that
Yeah,
they show.
yeah, and I think, man, like, just when we as we're kind of landing this plane here, I think one of the most important things that agents need to know is to let us help you. That might sound a little
Yeah.
counterintuitive. What do you mean, let us help you? Well, I think so many people come into our business. They came in, again, this kind of goes back to that employee mindset. In corporate America, you are disciplined for making mistakes. You try and avoid making mistakes because that's not a positive thing. That could get you fired. That could get you suspended. That, like, screwing up is not good. Well, in our business and really anything where you're trying to grow and develop yourself, failure is such a crucial part of what we move forward, what we need to do to move forward. And so in our business, we want to be able to nurture, your numbers, nurture kind of the metrics that your business has, and nurture your skill set through the failures that you're experiencing so that you can have the consistent successes that us and other established agents and agency owners have. So let us help you. No one, I don't know of anyone in our industry that's a mentor or a coach or that's had success that was ever upset when someone was reaching out to them for help. I'm not aware of it. Now, I'm certainly aware of situations, especially like for myself. One of my pet peeves, if I just brought somebody into this business, I just gave them, what I am willing to do to help them out, and then they don't take advantage of it. They bury their head in the sand. They join the witness protection program. That's what's really disappointing to us. That's what frustrates us.
Or they do the opposite. We tell them exactly what to do, and then they're
Yeah,
just like,
you're like,
I'm going to do something different. It's like, all right,
Yeah.
well, yeah, good luck coming to me again for advice.
yeah.
That's,
Yeah, you're like,
I
what a
agree with
great
you
idea.
100%
Let's
there.
not do that. What I would just kind of say is if you're somebody brand new, if you're looking in, you're within your first 90 days, or you're just looking at really bringing yourself back to the basics of the business, make sure, really evaluate. Am I thinking like a business owner? Have I developed a schedule that
Yeah.
myself, my family, everyone's bought into? And am I sticking to that schedule? Am I being disciplined? Am I consistent with leads? Do I have that on an ongoing basis? Am I making sure that I'm putting in the activity? When it comes to leads, the reason that we recommend you have a full batch of leads that you can dial every week, the reason Ashton has advised his agent that was having so much success, is because we want to make sure you have enough at bats. If I said to you, hey man, I know you've never swung a baseball bat before, but I really want to teach you. Here's what we're going to do. You're going to go ahead and drive out to meet me. We're going to meet at the batting cages. And then I showed up and I said, hey, good news is, I'm going to show you exactly the form. I'm going to show you exactly the swing. Bad news is I only could afford to bring 3 baseballs with me. So I'm going to throw 3 face baseballs. Number 1 and number 2 are going to whiz right by you. Maybe you foul tip the third one. And then I'm going to be like, all right, man, you're ready to go. And you're going to be like, I am not ready to go. So we need to have 300 baseballs that I could throw at you until you finally are consistently hitting them out of the park. And it's the same thing for leads. It doesn't
Yeah.
work where you dip your toe into the water and then suddenly you're a world-class swimmer. You got to jump right in. You gotta make it happen, and you gotta have a little bit of that leap of faith. So, with that, Mr. Federico, any final thoughts here?
I think if you're a new agent getting started in this, you really need 3 things, right? First thing that you need is skills. Second thing you need is cash flow. The third thing you need is work ethic. Those are the only 3 things you need. Now, here's the deal. You have to have at least 2 of them. If you only have 1, this thing doesn't work, right? But you can have 2 out of the 3 and still be good. So as an example, if you come in here and you don't have the cash flow, you can offset the cash flow by your skills and your work ethic. You can get old leads and you can hustle through those old leads with work ethic, and you can sell them with your skill set, right? You can hustle up people online or people in your life, and you can get warm market sales, and you can solve your cash flow problem by using your skill set and your work ethic. If you come in here and maybe you've been super successful before and you've had other businesses and you've built things from the ground up and you've got the cash flow and you've got the skills, but your work ethic kind of sucks because you've already done that, right? Well, guess what? You're going to use your money, your cash flow, to pay somebody else to have the work ethic. And you're going to solve that problem by getting appointments on your calendar and using your skills to close those appointments and be profitable, right? If you come in and you don't have the skill set, which a lot of people do, they have the work ethic, they're ready to work hard, they've got the money, they can buy some leads and they can get going, but they've never sold insurance before. Well, guess what? You're going to use your money to buy more leads. You're going to use your work ethic to work those leads, and you're going to get the experience you need to offset your skills gap, right? But you need to have 2 out of the 3. If you come in here and you don't have cash flow and you suck at talking to people, no amount of work ethic is going to change that. Right? If you come in here and you're
Yeah.
amazing at skills and you've got tons of money in the bank, but you just don't pick up the phone, you have no work ethic, right? Or you have no work ethic and you don't have the money to buy leads, but you're great at talking to people. That's really not going to work for you. So you need to have 2 out of the 3 at least. So know which one you're deficient in. And guess what? When somebody comes in like Dylan Crane and they've got all 3, they've got cash flow to get leads, they've got skill set, and they've got hunger and work ethic, they write $100,000 in 60 days. Right. And so, like, which one are you deficient in? And are you using the other 2 to solve the missing piece for your business? That's
So good,
my
man.
last thought, man.
We are wishing everybody incredible success, whether it's your first, second, third, or 50th 90 days in the insurance business. We know that anybody can do this regardless of background. As long as you bring these things that we mentioned to the table, you're going to be able to make it happen. So with that, everybody, have an awesome day and go out and make it happen for you and your family.